What's up everyone, thanks for tuning back into the channel. This week was a big week for Harley, or rather it was supposed to be. They just announced their new Nightster, and I think it's safe to say that a lot of people have been anticipating this release because for the most part, the Sportster has been an icon in the Harley Davidson lineup. So much so that they haven't updated the bike in decades. The Iron 883, the 1200, and the 48 are essentially the same bikes that they have been for a very long time. And this year, Harley has ushered in a new era. But are they on track? Let's discuss. All right, so I've been eyeing the bobber segment for a while now because I think that's going to be my next bike alongside the Lowrider S and my Grom. With that said, the competition is pretty fierce in that segment. You have the Indian Scout Bobber, the Scout Rogue, as well as the other variations of the Scout. You have the Triumph Bobber, and of course the Honda Rebel 1100, just to name a few. I was waiting for Harley to announce the new Nightster with a lot of anticipation because it would have been really nice to potentially own one. I've always loved the Sportster. I've made a video a while back about, regretting trading in my Sportster, and ever since then, I've sort of been thinking about getting back into one. However, after seeing the release of the new Nightster, I was left feeling a little underwhelmed, and so it took me a while to kind of figure out why that was. And don't get me wrong, I love the fact that they stuck with the classic silhouette of the Sportster, and you can definitely see the heritage there. But what kills me is that price point of $13,500. Frankly, I was in shock. To me, I think Harley missed an opportunity here to take a big chunk of the buyer segment. New riders looking to get into the Harley line, basically. And whatever happened to the Harley 48X? Where did it go? Harley trademarked that name earlier, and so does that mean we might see a new Sportster down the road? We'll talk about that towards the end of the video as well. But first, let's quickly compare just a little bit. I'm not going to do a breakdown of bike to bike, but I do want to highlight a few things that I saw just right off the bat. So I'm going to call this segment the Battle of the Bobbers. The first bike on my list is the Indian Scout Bobber. I've been sort of eyeing that bike for a while. It comes in at $11,500 and puts a whopping 100 horsepower and 72 foot-pounds of torque. And so the Scout Bobber comes in at $2,000 under the Nightster and puts up better numbers versus the Nightster, which comes in at 90 horsepower and 70 foot-pounds of torque. I will say the Scout Bobber does come in a little bit heavier than the Sportster, so all in all, the performance might wash out against the weight. Indian also offers the Scout Rogue, which comes with those mini apes and a fairing, skinny tires, if that's more of your bag. I will say that the Sportster does offer riding modes where the Scout Bobber doesn't, but I don't think anyone is going to fork over $2,000 more just for riding modes on the Nightster. I know that some people will prefer a lighter, more nimble bike like the Sportster, but some people might prefer the heavier bike like the Scout Bobber. It makes you feel a little bit more planted on the road, less susceptible to wind gusts, things like that. At the end of the day, to me, if you wash out the performance, the Indian Scout Bobber still comes in at $2,000 under the price tag of a Sportster. I meant the Nightster, sorry. It's getting me confused. Then you have the Triumph Bobber, a classic minimalistic motorcycle which has the same price point as the Nightster. With the Triumph Bobber, you get 77 horsepower and 78 foot-pounds of torque, so it's very similar specs in terms of performance. It is slightly heavier than the Nightster, coming in at 550 pounds, but it does come with some finer appointments like twin disc Brembo brakes. It also has traction control, comes with a nice pair of Avon Cobra tires, and a slightly smaller tank size, coming in at 3.1 gallons. So okay, the Nightster wins out on this one, but it's fair to say that I think the Triumph Bobber has been out for a few years, so it's a little outdated. Finally, let's look at the Honda Rebel 1100, which made huge waves last year. It's coming in at well under 10K and puts up 81 horsepower and 68 foot-pounds of torque. So yes, the Nightster does ever so slightly beat the Rebel 1100 by a small margin, but is that really where Harley wants to hang its hat? So clearly Harley isn't that out of line, but something about this just doesn't sit well with me. I was expecting Harley to at least compete with the Indian Scout Bobber, and it well missed the mark in terms of price and performance, which are two of the biggest factors for me when purchasing a motorcycle in a similar category. In my opinion, for those that are looking to get the best performance bobber are likely to go with Indian, and for those that are looking to go with the best bang for the buck are likely to go with the Rebel 1100. And for those that want a classic looking motorcycle that's a throwback of yesteryear are likely to go for Triumph. And where does that leave Harley in this Battle of the Bobbers? I'm wondering if Harley has one more trick up their sleeve with the 48X. Could we potentially see another variant of the Nightster with a RevMax 1250 engine like the Sportster S with the same performance specs as the Sportster S? That could be definitely interesting, but most likely if they were to release something like that, I'm guessing it'll come in at around $15,000, similar to the Sportster S. So with all those things being said, I've really thought about what I would have liked to have seen from Harley Davidson to make me feel very satisfied with the new Nightster. So for the Sportster, while it was an iconic motorcycle for the Harley Davidson line, it did not age well over the decades. Other motorcycle brands just outpaced the Sportster, and if you were one of those few that, you know, had a Sportster, you most likely had to deal with just, you know, envy or people talking trash about your bike. We had to endure that for so long. I think fans of the Sportster were just really hoping that this new era of the Sportster would put them well ahead of other manufacturers, would put them ahead of the race, and really outclass all of the other motorcycles in that category. It just kind of didn't. It's right in the middle, to me, in my opinion. It's more expensive than their competitors, while the specs aren't really world-class beaters. Is that what we waited this long for? Is that what we waited decades for? 40, 50 years? I'm just really disappointed. Here's what I would have liked to seen. Take out the Sportster S. To me, that's not a Sportster. You give me that Nightster frame, you put the 1250 Rev Max engine in it, and you give me all of the specs that the Sportster S has with the classic lines of the Nightster, and put it at $13,000, you have yourself a winner. I would have bought that. I would have gone for that in a heartbeat. No, but you get the Rev Max 975 engine. It just doesn't make any sense. We waited this long. Give us the goods. Give us the performance. My light just went out over there, so give us the best that you have. Don't give me this middle of the road stuff and then price it, you know, well above your competitors. It just doesn't make any sense. That's my rant for today. You know, that's it for me, guys. I was really hoping that Harley would make this decision easier for me by blowing us all away with the Nightster. I was really thinking that the price point would be around like 10 or 11, knowing that it was coming with the 975 engine, which would have been really enticing still. But we're talking about Harley after all. I will say though that I'm still excited. I think it's still a nice direction overall that Harley's going in with the Revolution Max engine. I think that it opens up a lot of opportunities, a lot of possibilities. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.